Hey guys, it's Alex here with www.carburetorclean.com. I'm going to show you how we're going to get these carburetors off this old bike and how we clean them. But usually if your bike's sitting all winter and you haven't started or drained the gas properly in the fall, then come spring when you go to fire it up, it might not start or it might not run right. Oftentimes it won't idle right because the pilot jet is just getting clogged. But it's not the end of the world. You just need to get them off and get them clean. Now usually when I do this, I wear gloves and also have the ventilation going because usually it's spilling a bit of gas just by the nature of working on the fuel system. So here's one. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how I'm going to take these apart and how we clean them. So I'm just going to do one of the carburetors. They're all the same in this case. I went ahead and drained these already, so you should, I usually go outside and drain them into a cup or something and you know, put it in the lawnmower or something. But anyways, these haven't been sitting too long, but usually if you're cleaning your carburetors, you'll see a whole bunch of gunk in this bowl from dirty fuel or just from sitting. If you just let fuel sit in there for months on end, it kind of gums up and creates like a varnish, which will clog up some of the little ports. This is your main jet right here. Right here is your main jet. Looks like we have this is a Mikuni. We have a 92.5, which is stock jetting for this motorcycle. I've got tune pipes on it, so I'm going to go ahead and bump those up a couple sizes and see if I can get some better top end performance. But so here's your main jet, here's your float. This is your inside here will be your pilot jet. So we'll go ahead and take that out first. This is usually what the issue is. If there's a problem with idling or it's hard to start, this is the smallest jet, and so it has the highest likelihood to clog. Now this one's pretty clean, but you can look through the jet. I usually look somewhere that's brighter than in the garage, you know, the clouds or something, and you can see whether or not that's clogged. Now you also want to notice, I'm going to come around here, you also want to notice, this is important, let's see if it'll focus, there's a series of holes cut across, and it's also important that these holes that are cut across are also working, not clogged up. Some people might not know about them, might not notice them, but it's just as important. You might be able to see it right there. You can kind of see the holes. So go ahead and make sure those are clean. And then inside here, this inlet, you need to make sure that's clear too. And you can do that just with a piece of wire. If I have like an old appliance or something, I usually cut the wire off before I throw it away. And one of those fine copper wires won't damage anything in there, but it works great to clean out the little holes in here. And then you can either spray it out with some carburetor clean, or I'm going to use an ultrasonic cleaner. But especially for this jet, it's important that you clean it out with a piece of wire and not just throw it in an ultrasonic cleaner or spray it down with carburetor clean, because it usually won't work. You really have to physically clean it out. So there's your pilot jet. I just put everything in the bowls together so I don't get things mixed up. And usually with this bowl, you know, you're going to take a wire brush and try to clean in here the best you can. There's a lot of hard spots to get, so you're probably not going to be able to get it all, but you can get most of it. So there's that. I'll put the pilot jet in there with it. And from here, we'll pull out the pin for float. That comes apart. These are brass floats. Newer ones will be plastic. Not too complicated there. I guess, you know, if you want to adjust your float height, there's a tab right here. That's how you adjust the float height with this tab. You just bend it up or down, and it's a pretty fine adjustment, so you don't have to bend it very far. But you can also test your floats in a cup of gasoline or some kind of a thin solvent and make sure that they do not leak. If they leak, they'll sink and hold your valve open. This needle valve actually will be held open, and that could be one reason why gas is spilling all over your motorcycle when you turn the fuel on. This is the float needle valve. This is very important. This is what seals off the fuel coming from your gas tank when this carburetor fills up. You know, the bowls only fill up about halfway or so. I mean, it's specific actually how much they fill up, but they fill up to a certain point, and then this surface right here needs to be totally clean and smooth, because this is what seals off the fuel. So if it's not, or if a piece of dirt gets stuck on that surface or it gets scratched, it won't seat properly against its brass seat, and fuel will get by this valve, and it can end up on your floor, it can end up in your garage. Just a bad deal. This is a wear item, so oftentimes if you see a little tiny ridge, which I can actually kind of see a ridge starting to form, you want to replace these. They're not super expensive, but they are super important. And here's your main valve, or pilot jet I should say. And this is what controls your high throttle, pretty much from 3/4 to wide open. It controls that range specifically. If you raise or lower it, it'll also change, usually about halfway mid-range and up. But you can do that also with the needle valve, which I'll show you here. So this has a little washer on it. Be careful not to lose that little washer. I'll go ahead and take the slide out. And here's a slide. These are specific. These can also wear out, but they usually don't. Here's the needle. Needles are very specific. It's usually best to go with the OEM. So this is your float needle valve seat, and this has a little gasket on there. Be careful if you're going to reuse them not to get that dirty or lost. Pretty straightforward. And then this is the needle valve. What's it called? But there's a piece of brass in there that also gets removed. This is what your needle valve slides in. That's an important piece of the puzzle, if you will. And one more thing. Here's the air screw. And these usually have O-rings that seal them, and oftentimes they're spring loaded. But we'll go ahead and take that out. There's a little spring in there too. You want to make sure you don't lose that. So here's your disassembled carburetor body. Yeah, it's ready to be cleaned. I usually separate all the brass pieces, and I'll clean those separately. They're kind of the vital, important pieces, and then the body is also has a lot of different passageways. As you can see, there's, you know, all these little holes. One here, a tiny one right here that you probably can't even see. All throughout, there's several passageways, and if any of them are clogged up, you'll probably run into some issues. You know, leaking gas, whatever. But the biggest thing is the pilot jets and that little guys in there. So we'll go ahead and clean everything up, and I'll show you how we clean them and put it back together. Okay, Alex back here with www.carburetorclean.com. So we just got our Kawasaki H1 carburetors out of the ultrasonic cleaner. It was in there for about half an hour, and here's what the float looks like. Jets look pretty good. They weren't too bad before, but they're pretty good now. They look great. So yeah, it only takes, I don't know, half an hour or so. It's pretty much anything that you want cleaned ultrasonically. It could even be you know, throttle bodies or injectors, anything that's aluminum and tarnished. So you can see the difference here. Here's the old, which was fine, just pretty dirty, you know, and then cleans up real nice in the ultrasonic. The big thing is, though, all the little passageways in here that are hard to reach are now thoroughly cleaned, and I like to go ahead and just blow them out with some compressed air again. And I'll do this, you know, more thoroughly. I'm not on camera, but as you can see, I left the gasket on accident actually, and it comes out just the way it went in, totally undamaged, which is nice, because some of that stuff that you buy at like the store, auto parts store, like the, what is it, Chem Dip or whatever, that stuff will just eat this, and you have to order new gaskets. So anyways, as you can see, does a really nice job, and does it quickly. You don't have to sit there and scrub forever, and all those little passageways that make your motor run right are clean too. So, alright, thanks for watching. So, we've now got the carburetor out of the ultrasonic cleaner, and I had these parts disassembled, but I was taking some pictures, so I put them together, but looks pretty good. Everything nice and clean, and the brass looks good, the aluminum looks good. Takes off all the years of dirt and grime, even in those hard to reach places. Like in here, you can see that it's like totally clean. Like I don't even think you could get in there with anything else, except for an ultrasonic cleaner. I don't know, you know, maybe some dental tools and a lot of patience. But we'll just go ahead and give this some compressed air. So we'll just go ahead and reassemble this. I'm going to go ahead and switch to a larger size jet because we are running a modified air box and also expansion chambers that I just built. So we're going to switch it to from a 92.5, which is stock for this year. It's an H1E, 74. So I'm going to switch to hundreds, and we'll go ahead and reinstall our needle jet. And there's only one way that you can install this on this particular carburetor, because they have a little brass cutout, or not a cutout, but a pin that fits a cutout on the needle jet, so you really can't put it in backwards. They might be mirrored on different carburetors though of the set, so you could maybe mix up the needle jets from different carburetors and end up putting it in backwards. Alright, so here's 100, and I'll double check, make sure they all look about the same, just because sometimes people drill them out. I was just going through my set of jets. I've got a box of jets here, and I noticed that some of my 92.5s were drilled out to be larger, which you should never do. I'm just going to throw them away because I don't want to get them mixed up and end up having a big headache, because I think I'm putting in 92.5s and really they're drilled out to who knows what, 120 or 150, beats me. So I don't put the pilot jets in too tight, just because they can just a flathead, and it's easy to strip out that soft brass. Same thing goes with the main jet. I'll get it pretty snug in there, but I don't want to go too tight. Here's our float needle valve seat. I got the gasket on there. Go ahead and get that on there. Clean my tool so it won't be as dirty this time. And now it's time for the needle itself. And I took a closer look at this needle, and it's not actually worn. It's just not as shiny as the rest of the area because it's butting up against the brass and it's abrading. But something to check on these is that this little spring loaded, I don't know if you can see that, but this spring loaded, this little pin right here on the end is actually spring loaded. So that's important that that's free. That just goes in there like that. And we go ahead and put our float in. And I always check to make sure that these floats work. They don't sink. And this one passed the test, so that's good. What else have we got here? Pilot, main, float. Yep, needle. Pretty simple. Bowl looks nice and clean. That's good. Yeah, doesn't get much cleaner than that. You can sit here for, hours doing this job. I just threw them in the ultrasonic cleaner for 15 minutes or so, and voila! I'm trying to find my gasket. Oh, here's the gasket. I put the gasket in too, and it didn't damage it at all. So that's great. You don't have to worry about your rubber parts dissolving like you do in some carburetor cleaner solutions. I know that can be a big issue. You know, you think that you can just throw the whole carburetor in a can of, what is it, Berryman's or whatever, the carb cleaning solution, forget about it. Well, you can, but then you'll have to go through and replace all the rubber parts that are now dissolved. And the slides also have a notch in them, so you can't really mix them up, which is nice. In the previous video, before I put it in, you can see this rubber is still nice and soft. It's not brittle, doesn't crack or anything. It's great, doesn't damage anything. It's ultrasonic, so that's really the big advantage here with ultrasonic, is that you don't have to replace everything. And sometimes those little plastic pieces you can't find. You know, diaphragms especially can get really expensive or not even available. So that's the big advantage with the ultrasonic cleaning, is that you don't have to worry about all of those little valuable diaphragms and gaskets that you would otherwise. So, alright, well that about does it. The other two are in the ultrasonic, so I'm going to take those out here shortly and finish reassembling those. And go ahead and give me a call or visit my website. The website is www.carburetorclean.com, and my name's Alex. Have a good night, guys.